Every time I watch Chelsea under Maresca, I can't help but feel like he's bluffing. One week you think you figured them out, then the next game comes and their style is completely different.
And a very good manager they brought in, so then for me it's not a surprise that they just keep continuing the results that they had the second half of the season.
Almost like you're watching another team. Opposing managers, Chelsea fans, pundits, none of them can predict what's coming next.
For me, I told Maresca 4 days without sleeping or sleeping really bad because when I watch his team playing, for me it's the most perfect playing, tactical playing in Europe.
But here's the thing, it's not random. Maresca has been implementing his style from the first day that he arrived at Chelsea.
I think he's done amazing. I think he really has done amazing because to come in for his style tactically to be implemented at such a short space of time.
A style that helped him win 2 titles with the Blues. What's interesting is that training footage shows that he's already been making changes to his dominant style.
He has all his solutions covered for the players, and the players understood really well his model of play.
Now you may be surprised. Why would you need to make changes to a system that helped you slap the Champions League winners? Well, that's because even through the wins, the titles, and the goals, cracks began to show. Issues that were papered over because the Blues won silverware. Maresca has analyzed those issues, and now he's building something new on top of what made him successful in the first place. When he first came in, he knew immediately what he wanted to do with the team. While the media was busy calling him Chicken Parm Pep.
Therefore, everybody who once shared coffee with Pep Guardiola is going to make a Premier League manager. It just does not work like that.
And questioning whether he was right for the job.
How about we've got a young team who need guidance, so I know what we'll do. Let's get a young, inexperienced manager and hope that he's able to guide them.
Maresca had a plan.
I said before, we are trying to build something important, not for this season, but for the next 5 years.
He wanted to make his Chelsea squad fluid and adaptable on the fly. And we saw that at the Club World Cup. The Italian tried all kinds of different systems throughout the tournament. For example, look at the different roles that Cole Palmer played. Against LAFC, he played as the 10. Against Flamengo, he played as a right winger in a 4-3-3. And then against Benfica, he played as the left winger in a 4-2-3-1. With Palmer on the left, Pedro Neto stayed wide on the right, giving Maresca the chance to use all 3 of Caicedo, Lavia, and Enzo in the middle, something that he had hinted at trying in the 2025 season. In his setup, Enzo played further forward in the number 10 role, while Caicedo and Lavia sat just behind him as a double pivot. Meanwhile, Reece James didn't push into the midfield like he sometimes does. You see what I mean when I say nobody can figure out what system Maresca is going to use next? Instead, he stayed back and acted more like a third center back. That allowed Chelsea to shift into their usual build-up shape, which is a back 3 with a box midfield. Against Benfica, Palmer did most of his work in the left half space, which gave Cucurella the chance to push up and join the front line. And this kind of movement is exactly what makes Maresca's system so flexible. Benfica tried to stop Chelsea's midfield box by defending in a narrow 4-3-3 shape. They wanted to block the central passing lanes. So Palmer and Enzo, who were acting like number 10s, had space to receive the ball before Benfica's midfield could actually press them. Sometimes Angel Di Maria even dropped back from the wing to form a back 5 and stick close to Palmer. But the thing is, Palmer is brilliant at finding little pockets of space, turning quickly, and then playing dangerous passes or taking the shot himself. In the first half, he tried a few through balls to Delap, but his timing was off. Now you could say maybe the passes were too strong or the run wasn't right. Either way, the ideas were there, the execution was just lacking a bit. But naturally, the chemistry will build between these two guys. In the previous season, Palmer had looked at his best when he drifted out wide or dropped deep. That's where he could show off his vision and passing range. And that's what he tried to do against Benfica. Being a left footer on the left side helped him whip in those sharp passes across the box. He just needed someone to make the right run. I'm not a fan of Palmer on the left side, but with him being left footed and playing on the left wing, there's certain angles that open up that wouldn't otherwise. In extra time, Palmer was unstoppable. Even after a long weather delay, he stayed locked in. Benfica went down to 10 men and the game opened up. And Palmer, well, he ran the show. Chelsea scored 3 goals in 9 minutes, and he played a huge part in that. Palmer on the left might help Chelsea become a more complete team in the attack. In the 2025 season, they focused too much on central areas, which meant they often ran into low blocks and had to rely on crosses. But their crossing wasn't balanced. They ranked 7th for crosses from the right, but just 15th from the left. Now that's partly because Reece James is so good at crossing from the right, and the fact that Cucurella's role had changed from being out wide to being more of a box crashing left back. Chelsea only scored 8 goals from crosses all season, which was the 4th lowest in the league, and just 2 of them came from the left side in open play. There were a few bright moments. Palmer assisted Enzo with a cross against Spurs in April, and away to Leicester, Cucurella chipped in a great ball that led to another Enzo Fernandez header after Jackson Shaw was saved. But Maresca, he wants to see more. From what I've read, in his long-term vision, Maresca sees Enzo as his number 10. That's why moving Palmer to the left side might be a smart move. It makes space for Enzo to push up and get more involved in goals. Before, Enzo had to sit deeper next to Caicedo because Lavia was injured for most of the year. But when everybody's healthy, Maresca wants him further forward. Now, Palmer was not the only player to be played in different roles. Here are all the different systems and positions that the Blues played at the Club World Cup in the US. Sometimes Cucurella or Gusto pushed up high on the wings, and other times they tucked inside to help in the midfield. Pedro Neto would start on the left in one match, then pop up on the right in the next. And then someone like Nkunku, he might stay wide in one game, but in others, like the one against Fluminense, he dropped deeper to help with the build-up. It all depends on the game plan, the opponent, and how Maresca wants to create overloads. Some of the changes Maresca made were more low-key, but there was a lot of them during Chelsea's semi-final against Fluminense. Pedro Neto started on the left, but moved over to the right in the second half, and looked just as comfortable, something that he had done all season. Nkunku, meanwhile, did the opposite. He began on the right, and then switched onto the left. Even Dewsbury Hall got in on the action. He came on as a right winger, with Palmer playing more centrally. But by the end, partly because Caicedo was off getting treatment, Dewsbury Hall had moved inside, and Palmer was out wide. It shows how fluid Maresca wants his team to be, with players constantly rotating based on the game's needs. This is also why Chelsea were at the top when it came to using the most amount of players. What was interesting about that match against Fluminense was how lethal Chelsea were out of possession as well. Their press not only disrupted Fluminense's attack, but it also gave the Blues more time on the ball. Against them, Chelsea pressed in a 4-3-3 shape. Nkunku, Joao Pedro, and Pedro Neto put pressure on the 3 center backs, while Enzo Fernandez and Cole Palmer kept close to Fluminense's double pivot, Bernal and Hercules, what a name, to cut off their options. On paper, Chelsea's 4-3-3 should have matched up very well with Fluminense's 3-4-2-1. Cucurella and Gusto could press the wingbacks, while Tosin or Chalobah could step into the midfield to help Caicedo. But Fluminense's attacking trio, Arias, Nonato, and Cano, moved around a lot and kept targeting the same spaces to overload Chelsea's right side. The key to Chelsea handling this pressure was how well Tosin and Chalobah read the game. They were constantly switching markers with Caicedo when needed. In this example, it looks like Caicedo was about to be overrun 2v1, but Tosin was already sliding across to help shut that option down. Rene, the wingback, got the ball under pressure and tried to connect with Arias, and then Cano, but neither pass worked. Caicedo's awareness and Tosin's positioning shut it all down. Caicedo didn't always have a fixed man to mark, so his role was more zonal, but he had to constantly read who to press based on the situation. For example, when Hercules played the ball back to Silva, that was the trigger for Chelsea's press. Enzo jumped on Hercules, and Caicedo stepped in at the right time to cut off the pass. Chelsea's pressure worked so well that Fluminense kept getting pushed backwards and being forced to go long. And when they did, Chelsea's backline was ready. Fabio, who was Fluminense's keeper, tried 8 long balls during the game, and literally only one of them connected, and that was just a short one to his wingback. Chelsea kept the same high press going in the second half until the 54th minute, when Fluminense made some changes and switched to more of a 4-2-3-1/4-3-3 shape. Seeing this, Maresca quickly adapted, and that's when Joao Pedro scored again to make it 2-0. Chelsea had changed their shape without the ball, switching to a 4-4-2. Palmer had moved up next to Joao Pedro to form the front two. Now, instead of marking the deepest midfielder directly, Chelsea left them free and either blocked his passing lanes or zonally marked them. It was a smart move because in that heat, pressing man-to-man takes a lot of energy. This new setup also gave Chelsea a spare center back at all times, which made things safer at the back. Fluminense still managed to break through a few times in the last 30 minutes, but the chances they created were not dangerous. The extra defender in the middle really helped keep everything under control. Then after this match came Maresca's real masterclass, and it's what he did to the Croissant Warriors in the Club World Cup final.
How important is it that your players are willing to suffer on Sunday, because there will be long times in the game where you do not have the ball?
Who said that?
Cole Palmer! On a baking hot day in New Jersey! Feel the chills! Cole's match this time. Cole Palmer exploiting that space again. Now what a trick from Palmer! Superb! The finish is almost a carbon copy! Work needed in that regard. Palmer, Joao Pedro, hits 3. Club World Cup final and a statement victory to re-establish Chelsea back amongst the elite. They have made it a blue day in New Jersey.
Let's start with the sexy stuff first. What Chelsea did with the ball. Because, you know, everybody wants to see the goals. The man who made Maresca's system work against the baguette lovers was Joao Pedro. Despite it only being his third game with the team, I mean, think about it, Joao Pedro won a title before he even saw Chelsea's training facility. He understood exactly what the Italian Dutch Lex Luthor wanted from him. Leading the line in Chelsea's 3-2-4-1 setup, Joao Pedro was a real headache for PSG's defense in the first half. His movement was fantastic, and he always seemed to know exactly which spaces to attack. He timed his run so well that he kept getting the edge over PSG's center backs. In this example right here, he starts off behind Beraldo as Robert Sanchez chips a pass out wide to Cucurella on the left. And from there, Joao Pedro is already positioning himself to make a dangerous run. Then when Cucurella plays the ball to Enzo, Joao Pedro takes a couple of steps forward to be in a position where he can either link up with the play or attack the gap between Beraldo and Marquinhos. This movement allows him to be ready for the pass when Enzo plays the ball into the space between PSG's center backs. Then in this example, Joao Pedro is positioned near the penalty spot while Pedro Neto and Enzo Fernandez link up down the left. And as soon as Neto passes it to Enzo, Joao Pedro takes a few smart steps into the space behind Marquinhos, makes himself available for a pass, and keeps the pressure on PSG's back line. Enzo finds him, and then the Brazilian immediately backheels the ball to Cole Palmer, whose shot just narrowly misses the target. Joao Pedro's smart positioning and his off-the-ball movement were critical to Chelsea's game plan for PSG. It's what allowed them to expose PSG's left-hand side. To exploit the space on the right, Maresca used Palmer and Gusto on the right to try and overload PSG's left back, Nuno Mendes. Meanwhile, Joao Pedro made sure to stay close to Beraldo, PSG's left center back, so that he couldn't shift over and help out. And you can see it right here. Whenever Chelsea attacked down the right, Joao Pedro would position himself on Beraldo's right shoulder away from the ball. This would cause Beraldo to be pulled out, and gave Gusto more space to isolate Mendes 1v1. It worked perfectly in the lead up to Chelsea's first goal. At first, Joao Pedro was on the left side of Beraldo as Cucurella passed the ball back to Sanchez. But as Sanchez launched the ball forward, Joao Pedro shifted to pin Beraldo in place, once again isolating Gusto against Mendes. The Portuguese could not deal with the long ball. I don't know what he was doing here. Gusto picked it up, gave it to Palmer, who finished it off. For the third goal, Joao Pedro's movement created the chance and finished it. He started off by positioning himself in front of Beraldo to stop him from stepping up to Palmer. My God, Beraldo was cooked in this game. That left Nuno Mendes stuck between marking Gusto or Palmer, and when Gusto made his run, Nuno Mendes had to commit. With the Portuguese fullback pulled wide, Joao Pedro drifted into Beraldo's blind side, timed his run perfectly, and when Palmer slipped the ball through, the Brazilian chipped Donnarumma to make it 3-0. Even Chelsea's second goal has Joao Pedro's fingerprints all over it. On a quick counter, Palmer was facing Vitinha with Beraldo nearby. Once again, man, this guy, he's in every highlight and not in a positive way. Joao Pedro made a run behind them, which forced both defenders to react. That opened up space for Palmer to drive in and curl the ball into the bottom corner. A copy-paste of the first goal. Considering that Joao Pedro literally didn't have time to train with the squad, his understanding of his role, both with and without the ball, has been incredibly impressive. Now, of course, the goals will steal the headlines, but what Chelsea did out of possession was arguably even more impressive. Not many teams managed to keep a clean sheet against PSG, but Chelsea did just that. And even more impressively, they made it look controlled. The Eiffel Tower lovers had only been shut out 5 times during the 2025 season, but none of those games looked like the one against Chelsea. From the very beginning, Maresca set the tone. His message before the kickoff was very simple: let them know you're there. And Chelsea did that immediately with intensity. They were aggressive out of possession, snapping into tackles and sticking tight to their man, especially in the first half. They were letting PSG know that they're not playing Real Madrid anymore. This wasn't going to be a walk in the park. That energy unsettled PSG's rhythm. I mean, just look at Caicedo putting their entire midfield into his back pocket. PSG loved to rotate positions and pull teams out of their shape, but Chelsea were ready. They matched that movement with smart defending. For example, when Fabian Ruiz made a run to get the ball early on, Chalobah followed him all the way to shut down the pass before it could even happen. Chelsea didn't go full man-to-man across the pitch, but their defenders were willing to follow their markers into strange areas when needed. Like when Ousmane Dembele dropped as deep as a left back, Chalobah went with him, forcing him to have to make a safe pass. And when he did that, the rest of the team adjusted quickly, shifting into a temporary back three. Levi Colwill did the same thing a few times, stepping out of the back line to stop danger before it built up. And when he did, Caicedo would drop into the defensive line to cover the gap, showing you just how well drilled Chelsea were in switching roles on the fly. There was even a moment where it looked like Colwell was the holding midfielder and Caicedo was playing center back. That's how fluid things got. Then out wide, the effort was just as impressive. The wingers like Pedro Neto were doing the dirty work, tracking runs all the way back to help defend. Earlier in the match, Cucurella had tracked Doué high up the pitch, while Neto sprinted all the way back to Chelsea's box to follow Hakimi, even heading the ball clear to Robert Sanchez to grab. At times, Chelsea even formed a back five, with everyone doing their bit to stay compact and block the passing lane. PSG were forced to just pass it around with no real threat for long stretches. It wasn't always the prettiest football. Chelsea had to clear their lines a lot and reset, but it was very smart, and more importantly, it was effective. The communication required and the awareness to have a mid-block like that, to defend that well against a team that had slapped everyone in their path, showed that Maresca's Chelsea were really at a top level. This game was very different from the semi-final against Fluminense, where Chelsea were able to press in their 4-3-3. PSG were too fluid for that. So instead, Maresca let his players embrace the chaos, staying aggressive in 1v1 battles instead of relying on triggers to press as a unit. And it worked. Maresca showed that he can come up with a game plan to beat anyone. The Club World Cup wasn't just a trophy, it was proof that Chelsea can now adjust tactics based on the opponent and still dominate. Will they use this exact approach in every big game in the 2026 season? Probably not, but the defensive discipline and flexibility they showed against PSG can definitely carry over. It's funny, Maresca used the Club World Cup as a place to experiment his different systems, and through his experimentation, became a world champion. Now Trump thinks Chelsea is the greatest team of all time. While Maresca's system can change game to game depending on the opposition, his core principles do not change. One of Maresca's key ideas is all about using width to open things up. He tells his wingers to stay as wide as possible. This stretches the other team and creates big gaps in the middle of the pitch. You could really see this during Chelsea's goals against Wolves early in the 2025 season. With so much space in the middle, guys like Palmer and Jackson can drift in and take advantage. The wingers don't come inside, they just stay wide and wait. That way, if the ball gets switched to the other side, they're already in a great spot to go 1v1 against the defender. And when you've got tricky players like Pedro Neto, Giddens, Joao Pedro, Palmer, you're gonna win the majority of those battles. It pulls the defenders all over the place and opens up space that would normally be shut down if Chelsea were playing more narrow. Another thing Maresca focuses on is having more players than the opponent in key areas. He often uses the inverted fullbacks to help pack the midfield, which helps Chelsea overload the middle and control the game from there.
Bring the fullback inside when we have the ball, because the idea is to have an overload in the middle, extra player in the middle.
A lot of the times you'll see Cucurella, Gusto, or Reece James, when he's healthy, tuck into midfield and act as an additional midfielder. This gives someone like Enzo more freedom to push higher up the pitch. It also shifts Chelsea's shape into more of a 3-2-5, forming a box in midfield. Now this setup works really well against teams that defend with three midfielders, because Chelsea always have that one extra man, making it way easier to keep the ball and control the game. But there's a risk, because when the opposition presses man-to-man, it can lead to mistakes.
We try to play here and they are a little bit more aggressive. We need to come back with the keeper.
To deal with that pressure, Maresca wants the goalie to get more involved during the build-up play, acting almost like an extra outfield player to help beat the press.
In this case, if this player drop here, the keeper is dropping in the is going the opposite side.
It's actually very normal to see Sanchez stepping up higher than usual, either to receive a pass or launch a quick counterattack. When the other team goes man-to-man with their press, Chelsea's back three spread out wide. That creates a pocket of space for the keeper to step into and basically become the fourth defender. That little move gives Chelsea an extra man at the back, turning everything into an 11 vs 10 situation. It's a simple way to get the numbers advantage back and keep control during the build-up. The other way that you maintain control is by picking up your own Chelsea jersey. Just go to buygamejerseys.com and use code PETTALKS at checkout. The inverted fullback role also helps Chelsea defend in transitions. When they lose the ball, having the fullbacks tucked into the midfield means there's usually 5 players ready to react and win it back. Since those players are positioned closer together, it's easier to press quickly and force mistakes, something that we have already seen multiple times from Chelsea. And when they do win the ball back, they're in a great position to launch a quick counter. What Enzo Maresca has done so far at Chelsea is honestly amazing. He's had to deal with a lot of off-the-pitch drama, yet he's still getting results with one of the youngest squads in Europe. Yes, the club spent a lot of money, but spending big doesn't guarantee success. Just look at Manchester United or Barca under Bartomeu. What makes Maresca different is how well he's integrated the new players while also developing the ones already at the club. Thanks to him, no one's talking about the price tags of Caicedo or Enzo anymore. To see how these two went from being labeled flops to the future of Chelsea, you have to watch this video right here.